Well, Newcastle might be looking towards the January transfer window, but Manchester United's new boss, Ralf Rangnick, has about £500 million worth of signings that he's trying to turn into a cohesive group.
Having the background of the English culture and the English language, I've always been interested in football and the way that football is being played, by the way of the atmosphere in the stadiums. I very much enjoyed that, and in that year when I played myself at Southwick, I also had the experience of how much the players would encourage themselves on the pitch. So I became a different kind of player and later on a different kind of coach. In football, it's all about control. If you want to win games, you have to have control, no matter if the other team has got the ball or if you're in possession of the ball yourself. And this is probably one of the major targets in the next couple of weeks, to help the team to have control on the game. And at least against the top teams in the last couple of weeks, I saw the game against Liverpool, against Manchester City, at Chelsea, although we won a point there, and even against teams like Watford, the team didn't have control. They didn't have control over the game, and this is something we'll try to achieve with the team. And of course, this has got to do when we have the ball ourselves, and what are we going to do when the other team has got the ball. And in those two areas, I think it's important to develop the team in the next couple of weeks. On the other hand, we won't have that much training time, because we play every 3 days, in fact it's about video footage, using video material as an important tool to develop the team, train the brains, and at the same time encourage the players to do the right things. And I think it's important to win games in the first instance, and then step by step develop the team into the right direction. Of course, you have to do it step by step, and in the first instance it's all about winning games. We need to be a little bit more proactive in both aspects of the game, with or without the ball. This will be one of the major targets again, to play in a more proactive style.
Well, that's what Manchester United fans have been looking for, is not necessarily a more proactive style, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's sides wanted to be on the front foot, but definitely a more energetic style. Have we seen that?
I'd say maybe the first half against the Crystal Palace, you'd say maybe there was a little bit of, OK, I can see what he's trying to do, but...
The Arsenal game?
Yeah, maybe, but I still thought Arsenal for large periods were a better side, so I think they got a bit fortunate that Manchester United came up against a relatively poor Arsenal team at the time. So I can see what he's trying to do, and I think the most important thing for United right now is they've got a sense of direction. I think under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it was too wishy-washy in terms of maybe Ronaldo will press, or there wasn't no cohesiveness in terms of trying to win the ball back high. But he's come in, he's trying to implement his style. It will take time. But I think that's the biggest thing I could say about United, is that there is a sense of direction rather than just off the cuff.
Yeah, they did make that change in terms of getting more out of the players. If we look at the stats from the Crystal Palace game, that was their best, second best, their best, in terms of all those kind of hallmarks of what we hear that Ralf Rangnick wants to implement at Manchester United. Is that... I mean, can we read too much into that, given that it was the first game?
Well, it's there for everyone to see, but for me, yes, I think we do have to slow down a little bit with Ralf Rangnick. I think he's very fortunate to get this opportunity. I think he's earned the right. I think he's done very well at little clubs and develop them into bigger clubs. I think he's done financially very well for all that group, the Red Bull group especially. He's obviously got a playing philosophy, which he goes with, but he has to have the personnel to play like that. Obviously, when you go to a giant club like Manchester United, with the amount of talent what they have, you're going to have, somewhere along the line, you're going to have the personality to play what you want. It's a work in progress for him. He's going to have to look every day on the training field, see who's capable of doing it. But then when you've got a Ronaldo on your side, surely, I mean, we're talking about a bright man. You see how well he speaks. I mean, this guy spins. This guy can get anyone eating out of his hand.
Well, that suggests that there's not much substance behind it, but he's shown that there is.
He's earned the right, but let's have it right. Who else wanted him? The Man United haven't stolen from the Chelseas and the Man Cities and the Juventuses of this world. I think he's more fortunate to be at Man United. Now, after the next 10 games, he will be the Messiah in the Man United fans' eyes, because they will win every game, in my opinion. I think they play West Ham at home.
And we'll see it in just a
but
second.
But we're still saying West Ham at
Yeah.
home, Man United, you know. I think he's capable. He's come at such a great time. Look at them fixtures. Could you want to handpick better fixtures than that?
It's a Christmas miracle.
He will be in the top 4 by the end of that fixture period.
He should be clear in the top 4.
Without doubt, it's fell in the right place. I don't give a care if Carrick could have been the manager, you know, Solskjaer, whoever, they would have won these games. I guarantee that. But I'd have to say, are we seeing a chalk and cheese philosophy change? No, not at the moment. I think we're seeing little bits and pieces, what we need to see. But Ronaldo has to play. From a short, I was going back to saying that. I mean, if you've got Cristiano Ronaldo and a gift like that in your squad, you have to find a way, even if it's not the way you want to play. And all this pressing, listen, let's get this pressing from the front out of the way. It's not the only way to play football, is to press from the front.
But it is a sort of recognisable Rangnick way of playing football in the same mode. But the one I want to ask you about Cristiano Ronaldo and the pressing thing. Why can arguably one of the fittest players, and probably one of the fittest players in the Premier League, why can you not ask him to press?
I think he can.
Yeah.
I think Rangnick was very specific, I think, in his post-match as well, after that Palace game, to say Cristiano did what I told him to do. He finally did that, which would give the impression that he would have potentially done that at other clubs, and he got this reputation for not doing that, if he had potentially bought into the coach. Or is he doing it because people are talking about his performances at Manchester United and this reunion and this homecoming not being up to scratch? And now is he aware of that and saying, well, I've got to work a bit harder? But I do think when you talk about philosophy, it's bizarre asking an interim coach with that title to try and imprint what is a very specific philosophy for a very short amount of time. Because then some other coach who they have a more long-term vision with is going to say, right, so this guy told you to do that for 6 months. We're now doing something completely different. Because it's really hard.
But this kind of assumption, although Rangnick himself has said, I'm not close to the idea of taking this job on past the end of this season. But the kind of assumption was that he would take a more director of football role and he would bring somebody in. So there was a sort of continuity of thought behind all of this. But in terms of coaching this pressing style that he likes, and I know what you're saying, he doesn't have to do that. But are there stages of it that he can go through, or is it you're either in or you're out in that style of football? Well,
he says it himself, you're either pregnant or you're not half pregnant. You either press or you don't. I think at the moment, I don't think they press. I think they're getting away with it, certainly against Palace, because I thought Palace were poor in possession. Yeah. I think when they play, let's see what they do after that group. Once they play against the top teams, can they go and play that style of football? We're looking for a playing identity, aren't we? Ralf Rangnick's come there because he builds identities and strategies to football clubs. That is why he's there. He said in that press conference, which I didn't like, or perhaps I do, but he showed his hand, that he's recommended to the board a few times before that he stays on for another year. Let's have it right. Ralf Rangnick is managing the biggest club he's ever going to manage, and he wants to stay there and be a success. Now, like I say, these Man United fans, after that group of fixtures, what we saw, he will be the Messiah in their eyes. Let's wait until they play Man City and the Liverpools and the Chelseas of this world, and they play with this identity, this pressing forward identity. Because at the moment, what I've seen, it's not spot on, but you don't expect it to be. He's not been there that long.
How long does it take? Because that's the kind of question
I think it's a couple of months before that works. But
it's a very specific style of play, this really narrow style of play. And when you break it down, even when you win the ball, you've got to have people on the overlap. And if everyone is so narrow and there's not that understanding of movements there yet, even when you win the ball back, which Manchester United did a lot, it's like, right, well, what do we do next? So there was often times where Sancho maybe would win the ball, Ronaldo would win the ball, and there was no runner ahead of them. So everyone would just sort of be stuck in the middle of the pitch. So I suppose, with this brilliant run that they've got all the way into, mid-January, they've got such a good amount of time to get used to those movements. And then by the time they do play a better team, they should have that awareness to know where each other is. But right now, when you look at it, it's good in terms of work rate, in terms of winning the ball and turning over. It's the what next, which is the thing that they need to work out.
The only thing is the fixtures might be nice, but there's not a lot of training ground time at the moment. There's not a lot of time with Christmas coming up and the fixtures coming thick and fast. He's not really going to get a chance to work properly with the players as much as he'd like.
He gets some video time, to the analysis guys. I think they'll be working overtime to try and get the message across. But I think you've got a group. Reason players play for Man United because they're a very bright group. Normally when you play at a top level, it's because you've got a very good footballing IQ, and I think they'll pick it up and I think they'll understand. I think the key to any press is how high you can have your centre-backs. I think that's why they've struggled.
And they had such a high line, didn't they, against Palace? They were way ahead of the midfield.
So the likes of Ronaldo, don't matter if you're 55, if you've got less distance to go and you have to go there quick. We're not asking before when they tried to have the press, he was going from like 20, 30 yards away. Now so is the other one. When one goes, the other one's following behind. And if you get your centre-backs up the field, it condenses the distance between your midfield and the strikers. And then you can all press together. You've got to move as one. And I think they've struggled because they've had Maguire at the back there with Lindelof and they dropped too high. Now he either comes and defends the halfway line or he doesn't play. Varane was going to help with that because he's
push him up when
he's going to push him up. Yeah, I think we've said. I think it's a work in progress. You don't expect it to be spot on. I don't want to be too unkind for them at the moment. You don't expect it, but I'd like to go back to that group of fixtures. I think they can learn on the job. Yeah. I think they're capable of winning with the players they have. And like Greenwood, we saw him last night. He's bigging him up. I think these are going to get an opportunity to play. But for me, Ronaldo has to play if he's fit. We'd be interested to see what happens to Pogba when he comes back as well.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's not like he doesn't have talent to pick from.
He's never had a group of players like this.
And Sancho's been reborn under him as well. I mean, brilliant to get him into the side and actually playing. Because
it happened under Carrick as well, didn't it? In the sort of couple of games that he was in charge. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens there.
This is a message from Chris. He says, we'll only know if this draw is a bad result after the last 16 draw on Monday. Until then, I'm not too fussed. League game on Saturday, much more important than to win tonight, as long as we avoid Bayern. I couldn't care less who we get. I mean, it is still frustrating. I mean, we know that they can only get a select group of teams, and they're not going to be easy teams that they can get. I mean, Lille is one of them, but they could also, they could be facing...
Listen, there's no doubt they would rather be on the other side of the draw, 100%. You want to be the winners and you want to play the other teams who are coming as runners-up. But listen, Bayern Munich's probably the only one that they'd say, there's going to be... It could probably knock us out and would give us a real tough game. I think Real Madrid are a great name, but in terms of a team,
Ajax they could face.
Yeah, Ajax will be an issue.
To be fair, they're playing great in the Champions League this season. Ajax, they've been great. I think he'll be obviously being defending champs. They can beat anyone, but I think he'll be annoyed at the way they've. I think they conceded a lead 4 times in the last 2 games. West Ham today. That's not like his team. So I think he'll want to fix that quick.
They've gone away from what we started to recognise them as being a real tough team to play against, hard to get through, hard to score against. And the last two games they've been anything but that, so that needs to change quick.
Just talk about Mason Greenwood. I remember me and you last season doing City in the Champions League against Dortmund, and Jude Bellingham coming out, talking in German to one media outlet, talking English to another, looking up and giving you a wave.
He was that was next level though, wasn't it? It was like
a leader.
Commanded the room, didn't he? But remember, the first thing I said was, wow, I've not seen an 18-year-old. First of all, over both legs against City, he was the best midfielder on the pitch, with De Bruyne out there, which is crazy. But then to go command the media line, and just the confidence for a young kid, really, that's rare.
I think Jude Bellingham could be the one that we've got some great young talent in this country. I think Jude Bellingham could be the one who's got the full package to become captain, leader, man amongst men. And play multiple positions and dominate big games throughout his career. And it's a big kind of challenge to him. And I don't want to go overboard, but I have, because what he does in all games when you see him, there's a moment in a game where you just think, he makes you go like that and go, that can't be 18 years old. Whether it's a bit of skill or it's just a body position or the way you see him demand the ball from somebody, he does things that you think, well, that's a 25-year-old who's been playing at the top for 5 or 6 years.
The thing is, everybody's going on about Haaland and spending money on Haaland, and rightly so. But honestly, if I'm a big team in England, United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, that is the guy you go get. That's the heart of your midfield for a decade. Whatever he costs, you go make that happen, because he is special.
And there aren't many players that you can say at that age, if any, that you can say he improves every team, I think, on the planet that he goes to right now. At 18 years old, I think he improves every one of those teams you just mentioned.
I love that. High praise indeed. And I've enjoyed this whole part, because we've just been talking about young talent, and we saw some other young talent coming on for United this evening. In fact, 6 teenagers finished the game, but the one that we had a special interest in, because we worked with his dad, was a certain young man by the name of Savage. And actually, we've had a lovely update from Instagram from Charlie Savage. Delighted to make my debut this evening for Manchester United in the Champions League. Sorry, I don't know why it keeps disappearing. I'll tell you what he says. I would like to thank all the academy staff for their support over the last 14 years, and the manager for putting his trust in me tonight. Also, congratulations to his teammates Dan, who also came on this evening. They joined the club when they were 5 years old together. They walked out together, sat on the bench together, and then came on together as well. Charlie Savage.
What a story that is.
Dan Iqbal. I mean, that is wonderful. Lovely to see his dad filming it as well. What happened to those conversations about no great young English talents? And here we are sitting talking about Reece James and Jude Bellingham and United bringing all these young talents.
I think for the two young players that's come up together at the club.
That's amazing, isn't it?
That's like a little short film, surely.
It's almost like Ralph knows that, and he's going, do you know what? I'm just going to bring you two out here, put you on together. It's a lovely story.
It's nice that they could share that together, actually.
Yeah, that's probably knits them together for life. That.
I mean, obviously, we spoke about Chai because of Sav and we've been working. But even Zidane Iqbal, he came on with him, didn't he? They did that together. That's his debut, in the Champions League. That's an amazing feat. I'm sure his family were absolutely delighted.
And Zidane, he's a big talent. Not just a big name, he's a big talent himself in his own right. So
you need to be with that name, though, don't you?
Exactly. You've got,
got a lot to fill. Yes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more conversation. See you in a couple of minutes.
Yes, it was a draw for Chelsea last night. A draw as well for Manchester United against Young Boys, the Swiss side, but they've already topped their group. Let's speak to Jamie Jackson from The Guardian, who covers Manchester United for them. Jamie, thanks so much for coming on again. Obviously, loads of changes here. I think Ralf Rangnick changed the entire squad, didn't he? Because they'd already qualified top, so he was allowed to make those changes. How did the backup players fare?
Well, not great. I mean, it was still a draw in a Champions League game. OK, it was a dead rubber. The best player wasn't a backup player, it isn't a backup player, Mason Greenwood. He scored a heck of a goal. I don't know if you're going to show it or you've already been discussing it, but it was a sort of scissors kick. From actually a nice move, Luke Shaw kind of skated down the left and crossed it in, and he had to sort of jump, turn his body, and just at the inside of the keeper's right-hand post from Greenwood. He is a class act. It was interesting, actually. Rangnick afterwards actually said, yeah, technically I've got no concerns, but we've got to work on his physicality and also his sort of mental approach to make him more consistent. And then his quote was, then he can be a regular for this team. And I like that, because Green was probably actually the best attacker there, if you take Ronaldo out of the equation for all sorts of reasons, at the club. But he's still, in that comment, letting him know a little bit, look, there's no guarantees. And maybe there was a little bit of that under Solskjaer, Rangnick's predecessor. Beyond that, he gave a couple of 18-year-olds a late debut. That's a nice touch. And changing all 11 players, as you mentioned, obviously gives the 11 who played, game time. And I thought that was quite a smart move. So far, impressive from Rangnick. It's Norwich on Saturday. And I thought they played okay, considering, as I say, it was a completely changed team.
Jamie, let's hear from Rangnick. You said he was full of praise afterwards. He was asked if Mason Greenwood can be compared to Dortmund striker Erling Haaland. This is what he had to say.
I don't think that we should compare those two players. They are different kind of strikers and players. Erling Haaland is extremely physical. He's, 193, 194, different kind of striker. Erling, for me, is a target striker. He can play as a single striker, like a target man, or together with another striker in a 4-4-2. I think Mason is more of a 9.5. He can play as a striker. He can also come from the wing. He can play together with another striker, and he's very technical, left foot, right foot. And as I said, sometimes he looks a little bit not on an athletic level, and I think we have to develop him there physically, but technically, what all the things that he can do with the ball are outstanding. So I'm not so much worried about his technical level. We need to develop him physically and mentally to become the strongest version of himself. And if we manage to do that, he can become a regular player and a very valuable player for our club for the future.
Rangnick speaking about the future there, saying they need to develop him. We have to remember he still is only 20 years old, Jamie. How important is he to the future of Manchester United going forward?
Yeah, I think him and Phil Foden are probably, or are the best two, young players in the Premier League. And they've got a case, certainly Foden's slightly ahead at the moment in development, but, they've got a case continent-wide. So, Mason Greenwood's 20, as you mentioned. You're looking at a decade plus of, from Manchester United's point of view, hopeful top-class service. He is a breathtaking talent. He had a ridiculously phenomenal record at schoolboy level. It was something like 110 goals one season, like, in whatever games he played. I think he was a local or sort of area sprint champion, so he's lightning fast. And what Ralf Rangnick says there, about developing physically, he has developed a little bit, but, from when he was sort of 17, 18, breaking into the team. Yeah, this goal here, against Leeds maybe in the opening game of the season, was unbelievable. He's a bit like Alan Shearer in the finishing stakes, in that he never misses the target. I'm not saying he always scores, but compared to, say, Rashford, who began as an out-and-out striker and is more of a wide player now, he's a class above, I think, in terms of his absolute lethal finishing. He's sort of eye for goal. And what's also interesting about him, or important, is he'll drop off and play as a 9.5, as Ralph said there, the sort of playmaker. And there was a moment yesterday actually when he sprinted sort of halfway, did the high press, nicked the ball from a young boys player, and suddenly United had turned, defence became attack, and there's a chance for Elanga down the right, sort of in the penalty area, and that's exactly what Rangnick wants. And it's interesting again that Rangnick's saying he wants development, because I think he's got not a sky's the limit ceiling, but you understand what I mean. He is so good, or potentially already he's very good. But the potential there is where he wants. Is this the old equation when it comes to anything in life, football especially, as we're talking about this? How much does he want to work on his own game really, and listen to someone like Ralf Rangnick? Ralf Rangnick can only be good for Mason Greenwood's sort of development.
Jamie, you mentioned a couple of debuts for 18-year-olds. Tell us more about those. One's got a famous dad, and the other one's got a famous name.
Yeah, so Zidane Iqbal, I don't know this for sure, but I'm half guessing the first name is named after the famous Zidane. He's 18-year-old, and obviously Charlie Savage is Robbie Savage's son, and he's 18 as well. Robbie Savage happened to be commentating on the game yesterday evening, so that was a lovely moment for their family. And I'll tell you what, Zidane Iqbal, basically the last kick of the game after they both come on, he got the ball sort of in a middle third area and just did this beautiful loop pass over a young boy's defender. It's such a lovely moment. I thought it shows such composure. And he's got an interesting story. People, watching this, who've got an interest, should maybe look up Zidane Iqbal, especially his story. A bit of a late comer to football. I think he used to watch his dad play five-a-sides and sort of gradually became interested in the game. But, if you get on the pitch for Manchester United in the Champions League game, I don't care if it's a dead game, etc. It's Manchester United, like any top level club. That is a heck of an achievement for both of them. And let's see where they go. But again, nice from Rangnick, sort of a cute bit of management. The club will be buzzing today because these youngsters have got on the pitch. That's definitely the Manchester United tradition. We can go on a little bit too much about that, the development of players, but they do have it. It is a fact. And so again, very cute management. Tom Heaton, who came on earlier in the second half, I think he's 35, 36. He'd been at the club previously, but had never made a debut for Manchester United. He now has a debut. It was a very nice touch from Rangnick. I thought he got basically everything right he could yesterday, apart from the win. But as we're discussing, it was obviously immaterial with regards to being, the winners of the group already.
And it was a great night, wasn't it, for Zidane Iqbal, the young player, but also for the club, because he became the first British-born player of Asian heritage to make a senior appearance for Manchester United. So great for him.
And I really like the story that Rangnick had stayed behind after training with the two of them to get them ready to make their debuts as well. And moving on now to their next opponents in the last 16. They may have Atletico Madrid, PSG, Inter Milan, Sporting Lisbon, Benfica or Red Bull Salzburg. Who do they want? Who do they want to avoid, Jamie?
Good question. I mean, they've beaten PSG previously in group stages of Champions League. Maybe Salzburg would be nice, because Rangnick are obviously sort of director of football for that club and Leipzig for a period of years. Maybe one of the, if you ask me to actually choose, maybe one of the Portuguese clubs. It's got to be very difficult here because it's last 16, as you say, Champions League, knockout football. They should, and the mindset will be there from Randy. The mindset should be whoever we draw on Monday, we'll go there, and have them back at our place over two legs and beat them. But maybe avoid, a PSG, I would say. But it'd be interesting to see, because obviously these ties were discussed to be in the spring, early spring, February, I believe, mid-February, late February, maybe early March for the return. Let's see where Manchester United are by then, because I would suggest the way Rangnick's going, I know it's only 2 games, but everything that sort of he's doing and looking into him and what he's about, I'd be surprised if, you might almost flip the question and say, in that draw, does anyone want to draw Manchester United with Rangnick at the helm, considering what he's trying to do? It's really, really, I think it was a smart move from the club to bring him in. Obviously, he has to prove it. He's got a lovely run of fixtures, if I can put it that way, in the Premier League, all the way up to City in the derby. I think it's early March. Let's say, I'm going to be respectful, but, they're against clubs or teams which they would expect to get good results against. Yeah, there you go. So he's got a real chance here, a golden opportunity, Ralf Rangnick, to do something a little bit special, maybe.
Great insight, as always, Jamie. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll speak to you very, very soon. We've had loads of tweets in, haven't we?
They're flying in.
Players and managers returning to their old clubs. Love this from Spice Blink. He's not messing around. Stevie G's return at Anfield will definitely be emotional for him, but that won't stop Liverpool trashing his side.
And Stevie G says it's not going to be an emotional day, so we'll see. Housemate says the return of Cesc Fabregas against Arsenal, putting in a man-of-the-match performance. And Jaika Adams says Wayne Rooney going back to Everton. Keep those coming in using the hashtag PLFans on Twitter.